All right, let's talk about one of the weirdest mysteries of the last few years. It's got everything: a global crisis, total mass hysteria, and, you guessed it, toilet paper. We're going to get right into the psychology of why we act so strange when we're scared. Oh, yeah, you remember this, right? The pictures were everywhere. Totally empty shelves, shopping carts just overflowing. I mean, for a little while there in 2020, it really felt like the entire world just lost its mind over toilet paper. It really became the symbol of that whole bizarre time, didn't it? And that's really the heart of the puzzle, right? The thing everyone was hoarding wasn't masks or medicine or even, canned goods at first. It was toilet paper. What does toilet paper have to do with a respiratory virus? Absolutely nothing. And that total lack of a logical connection is what makes this whole thing so fascinating to dig into. And look, this wasn't just a handful of people getting carried away. As researchers like Lotto and his team pointed out, this was a huge global thing. Those viral videos and pictures of empty aisles, they weren't just one-offs. No, they were proof of this massive psychological chain reaction that was happening all over the world. So that brings us to the big question: why? It seems completely irrational. What is going on in our heads? Because here's the thing. What looks like total madness on the surface is actually driven by some really predictable, really human psychological triggers. And that's what we're going to do now. We're going to uncover them one by one. Okay, so our first clue in this mystery takes us to a powerful little quirk in our brains, a cognitive bias that, honestly, marketers have been using on us for decades. It's the simple idea: when something seems rare or hard to get, our brain just automatically decides it's more valuable. It's called the scarcity heuristic. Think of it like a mental shortcut. Instead of thinking things through, our brain just jumps to a conclusion. If it's hard to find, it must be important. So when you see an empty shelf where toilet paper used to be, your brain doesn't calmly go, must be a supply chain hiccup. No way. It basically screams, whoa, that stuff is valuable. I need to get some now. And this isn't just some abstract theory. It's been tested. The classic example is the cookie jar study from way back in 1975. It's so simple, it's brilliant. Researchers had people rate cookies from two identical jars. The only difference? One jar was packed with 10 cookies, and the other had just 2. Can you guess which cookies people said were more desirable, even tastier? Yep, the ones from the almost empty jar. The scarcity alone literally changed how they perceived the cookies. And this scarcity trap gets us all the time. It's not just a pandemic thing. Think back to the Cabbage Patch Kids panic in the 80s. People were actually rioting in stores over these dolls. Or remember the Y2K bug scare? People were hoarding food and cash, terrified of a computer meltdown. And more recently, in the UK, just the rumor of a fuel shortage was enough to cause massive lines and create a real one. It's the same pattern, over and over. Okay, so clue number 1, scarcity makes us want things more. But that doesn't explain why toilet paper. What tells us what specific thing we should be panicking about? Well, that leads us to our second clue. And honestly, this one might just be the most powerful force of all: other people. Think about it. When we're in a situation that's totally new and confusing, like a global pandemic, what do? We look around to see what everyone else is doing for clues. It's called observational learning. So you see someone else rushing past with a cart piled high with toilet paper. Your brain doesn't just see that. It interprets it as a signal, like a social cue that says, okay, apparently this is what we're supposed to be doing right now. And that flows right into the next idea: normative social influence. This is that deep, almost primal feeling of not wanting to be the weirdo, the one who's left out. When it seems like everyone is buying toilet paper, not buying it can actually make you feel anxious, like you're the only one who's not taking things seriously, or you're missing something important. And here's the fascinating mental gymnastics we do to justify it. Psychologists have a name for it: the third-person effect. The logic in our head goes something like this. Look, I'm not panicking. I'm rational. I see the media hype for what it is. But I know that all those other people out there, they're going to panic. They're going to clear the shelves, so I'd better buy some now just to get ahead of them. It's this wild paradox, right? We join the panic. To beat the panic, we blame on everyone else. And check this out. the data really backs this up. A 2021 study actually measured what the biggest psychological driver was. And look at these numbers. Yeah, perceived scarcity is a factor, sense of control's in there too. But they are absolutely dwarfed by normative social influence, that pressure to follow the herd. It's not even close. What we think other people are going to do is by far the biggest reason we panic buy.
So let's recap. We've got our mechanisms, the scarcity trap and following the herd. But what's the deep down motivation here? Why are these triggers so effective during a crisis? Well, it all comes down to one of our most fundamental human needs, the desperate need to feel in control.
This quote from a study by Yuan and his team just hits the nail on the head. When the world feels like it's completely out of our hands, a virus, a major crisis, we feel helpless. So panic buying isn't really about the toilet paper itself. It's about doing something, anything, that gives us back a sliver of control. You can actually map it out in a few steps. First, the crisis hits, and that brings a wave of fear and uncertainty. Step 2, that uncertainty makes us feel totally powerless. So step 3, our brain starts scrambling, looking for any action it can take to feel like it's in the driver's seat again. And then, step 4, stockpiling stuff. I mean, what feels more concrete and controllable than filling a shopping cart? It's our brain's way of saying, okay, I can't fix the big problem, but I can do this. I can protect my family. It's basically a coping strategy. Okay, so if we all kind of get sucked into this together, is there any way to break the cycle? Can we short-circuit this whole process? This is where it gets really, really interesting. Because it turns out this isn't just about our individual psychology. It's actually a strategic game we're all playing. It's basically the prisoner's dilemma, but in a supermarket aisle. Think about it. If you cooperate and just buy what you need, and everyone else does too, then there's enough for everybody. Great. But if you start hoarding while others are being reasonable, you win because you get more stuff. And the biggest fear, the one that drives everything, is being the person who acts reasonably while everyone else panics. Because then you're the one left with nothing. And that fear is what pushes all of us towards the worst outcome. Empty shelves for everyone.
So if we're all stuck in this game, can we be talked out of it? Can you persuade people to cooperate for the common good? Well, that's the exact question a 2023 study in Australia tried to figure out.
And this is just fascinating. The image on the left shows what people said they'd do, their intentions. Almost everyone says, yep, I'll cooperate, I'll buy normally. But then look at the image on the right. This is what they actually did in a simulated crisis. The chance of them panic buying just shoots way up. There's this massive gap between who we want to be and how we actually act under pressure. So how do you close that gap?
The results were incredible. Okay, so in the control group, with no special message, about 20% of people chose to panic buy. But then they tried a moral appeal, a message that basically said, hey, if you get greedy, vulnerable people are going to miss out. And look at that. Panic buying dropped almost in half to just under 12%. Even a message that said most people do the right thing worked nearly as well. So it turns out appealing to our better nature, it actually works.
So where does that leave us? What's the big takeaway here? Are we all just one bad news report away from fighting over the last pack of paper towels? Well, there's one last, kind of paradoxical piece of data we need to look at.
This is what's so wild. Even as we're all stuck in this every person for themselves mindset, a huge majority of us, I'm talking 80% in that study, we actually want rules. We support things like supermarkets putting limits on how much you can buy. Isn't that fascinating? We don't trust other people, or maybe even ourselves, to do the right thing, so we overwhelmingly want someone to set rules that force all of us to cooperate. It's like we're asking to be saved from our own worst instincts.
And really, that's what it all comes down to. That urge to panic buy is this powerful mix of things. A fear of scarcity, following the herd, and that deep, desperate need for control. In the heat of the moment, it can feel like the most rational thing in the world to do, but it's actually being driven by some of our most basic primal instincts. So now that you know the psychology behind it, here's the real question. The next time a crisis hits and you see that first empty shelf, will you feel the panic, or will you be the one who sees the psychology at play?